Hi, my name is Jenny Lauren Dowden for Conduit News. Today we have Arkansas State Senator Dan Sullivan joining us. He represents right now Senate District 20, and that is part of Craighead County. Hello, thank you for joining us.
Always my pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
I want to talk to you about a recent something that's happening there in Craighead County. I know that there are quite a number of issues surrounding the Craighead County Library and the library system there. And right now it will be on the ballot. Voters there will be able to decide whether or not to reduce the library's millage from 2 mills to 1 mill. Talk to us about that.
Sure. And of course, we've had several issues going on, as you know. But currently, there's a referenda to move as you mentioned, to move the millage from 2 mills to 1 mill. And in fact, there are about, I think, 60 to 70% of the libraries in the state, county libraries, are financed at 1 mill. We are at 2 mills. The library also has a $6.5 million surplus. And property taxes are being distributed, I think, in October, November, and December. And that surplus is likely to go up to close to 8 million in 2023 and probably close to 10 million in 2024. And we've just been asking the question, how big a surplus does the library need? At some point, this has to stop. And there are many in the county that feel like it needs to stop right now. That 6 million surplus is plenty.
There are probably many of our viewers who would agree with that. Opposition is saying that if this were to happen, the library system would completely be defunded, that all of their special programming, any type of community outreach would be no more. Is that true or untrue? Just walk us through that, if you would.
Well, of course, anytime the government starts to lose money, they start to threaten people and use the scare tactic. Oh, the sky is falling, everything will close. And yes, it's exactly what's going on now. In fact, they're collecting about 4.5 million in revenue, and they're spending about 3.5 million in revenue. And this measure would cut them back to 2.5, 2.7, somewhere around there. So it would force the library, in order to fund all of their services that they're doing 100%. Let me say that again. In order to fund all their services they're currently giving 100%, they would have to dip into their surplus. That's a good thing. We don't need state agencies sitting with taxpayer money on the shelf. That money needs to be out in the economy. As many people in Craighead County know, we've been working on these quality of life issues, and we can't seem to get the money together to build bike trails, to have a nice athletic facility, to have other, maybe homeless shelters. We've been struggling at that. Yet the library has $6 million, soon to be 8, soon to be 10, sitting on a shelf. That's not right. We need that money circulating in the economy. Jenny, many economists say that a dollar circulates in the economy 3 times in a year, the physical dollar. So if you go to eat, they pay their employees, they go spend the money, they go spend the money. So $6 million sitting on the shelf is really 18 to 20 million in circulation. If we get up to a $10 million surplus, we end up with $30 million out of circulation. And when you ask the library how much is enough, they don't have an answer for that. Or the supporters of the library, they don't have an answer. The other thing that they say is, well, we're going to have to shut down our remote locations in our small towns that surround Jonesboro. There are 4 or 6 libraries. In fact, I've talked to the mayors, and the mayors are with us. They would rather see the money in circulation. One of the towns provides the building, owns the building, provides all the maintenance, cuts the lawn, fixes all the things that are fixed, pays the utilities. They do all of that in their own community. The only thing the library provides is 1 employee. Another town, the library is housed in the community building in that community. So what the library is saying, we're going to have to shut all these things down, at best is disingenuous. At worst, it's just not true.
Talk to us. I have a few questions. Talk to us, though, as your time as a state legislator, you know how budgeting is done. You know that state agencies, whether they keep those funds at the end of a fiscal year or what happens to them, and that operates very differently than what, say, the libraries do. Walk us through that a bit.
Absolutely. And I'll just do a short disclaimer. I'm a state senator, but in Craighead County, I'm just a citizen. So
Yeah.
I'm as a citizen now, not as a state senator, because as a state senator, we have legislation that sweeps all the budgets at the end of the year. So if you have a surplus of $1.50 or $500 or $6 million, we sweep that and put that money back into the general fund to be used as the legislature determines. We also sweep any interest that those agencies, if they made money on interest out of that money, we sweep that interest too and put it back in the fund so that it circulates in the economy. And Jenny, you know that just in the last few months, the state had a large surplus, I think 1.2 billion.
Mm-hmm.
And people were saying, spend the money, spend the money. And we did. We spent a huge chunk of that, giving it back to the taxpayer in tax refunds. I'm sorry, in a tax change in the law to let the people get their money back. This is no different. The library should not be keeping a large surplus out of the hands of the people. It ought to be back in the hands of the people where it will circulate in the economy. And as a legislator, we have some of that state surplus left, and we're going to put it back in the economy when we get back in session.
Also, it's striking to me that a library system or a business, a successful business would say, well, I'm not really sure how much money we need or what our budget needs to be in order to keep our services and programs running. Those two things do not make sense to me. Do you believe that the library is being fully transparent and accountable with their funding?
Oh, absolutely not. We've found out just recently that one of the reasons, and this was an ad that the library supporters put out, they put out an ad that said they made $30,000 on their interest on that $6 million. Well, in fact, what they've done is to create a secret underground foundation. Many hospitals have a foundation. Some of our higher ed have foundations, but those foundations are all independent. They're regular. They have to report what they're doing. The library has a stated goal, I assume, by their ad, to use the surplus to generate revenue year over year. So one of the reasons we ask them, well, how much surplus do you need? We can't get an answer to that. Now we know that if they have a $6 million surplus and they make 30,000, the goal would seem to me to have a $10 million surplus and make 50,000.
Yeah.
Again, that's not what's best for the economy of Jonesboro and Craighead County, to put money on the shelf where it doesn't circulate and help people. Jenny, our citizens are struggling right now. People are living day to day, paycheck to paycheck. Yet the library has a surplus where they could live for a couple of years, maybe 3 or 4 years with no revenue. That is not reflective of what's going on in our community.
Right, that's remarkable. I know that there in Craighead County, on top of financial issues, other things have really caught headlines. I know that people have been really upset about some of the content there in the library system, such as having inappropriate content regarding LGBTQ and gender identity books that are just inappropriate for children. How has that, if at all, played into this issue?
Well, the people in support are fighting against the referenda try to conflate the two. They say this is punishing the library, and it's just not true. When people started looking at the books and things, they started looking at the budget too. And as they delved into the budget, they found all of these issues. So this referendum is strictly focused on the budget and taking a look at that. And they're separate issues completely. They're both important issues and both need to be dealt with, but you deal with them one at a time. And that's what this is strictly a referendum for the library to be accountable fiscally for how they spend their money, what they spend it on, and again, why do they need such a huge surplus?
Absolutely. Well, that again, like I said, will be on the November ballot for voters there in Craighead County. Anything else that you'd like to add before we go?
Yeah, sure. People can go to the Arkansas Counties Association, and they can look up on that website what their library, the funding level for their library and millage. Again, most of them have a 1 mil allocation for the library. Jonesboro has 2. They can also look at their library and ask for the financial information. I saw one library that has over 7 million in their reserve. There are a lot that have 2 or 3 million. Every county is different, but I think folks ought to look and start looking at what their government institutions carry. I met with our sheriff yesterday. Our sheriff's jail, he has a $5.4 million budget. His budget includes housing, furnishing, food, taking care of the prisoners, almost 400 prisoners, 24/7. And he has $1 million more than the library and just a few more employees. I think he has 74 employees, and I think the library has 64 employees. How does that work out? So I think people need to start analyzing how their government money is being spent and take whatever action they see fit. This is a good thing Craighead County is doing, bringing awareness to spending at the county level. I have never seen in my years in Craighead County a county tax cut. It's time.
Thank you so much, Senator. Look forward to having you back on again soon.
Thank you.